Alright, kid gloves are off. We're going full spoilers on this one. This movie was straight up Beeves, dude.
Who is Justice Beaver? It's a crime-fighting beaver.
If you've watched the movie, you'll know what that means. Or will you? The concept for this film makes a whole lot of sense. I lost my mom in 2018 to cancer, and the idea of being able to go back in time and stop that from happening or somehow save her is really appealing to me, and I can totally relate to someone wanting to do that. However, I love the way that the film deals with the consequences of messing with time. Batfleck has a great line, "The scars we have make us who we are." I think that's so true. Oftentimes pain is one of the best teachers and really causes us to turn out to be the people who we are going to be. Take Batman, Spider-Man, or Flash in this case, they all have really tragic stories, often ending in their parents' death or a close loved one's death, and that causes them to go on their hero's journey. I love this idea that's interwoven into the film of not every problem has a solution. There's a bunch of different ways to figure things out, but not every way works. Now, the twists and turns in this film will work to different people for varying degrees, but some of them worked for me towards the end, and some of them were a little bit weird whenever I kind of thought more about them. The reveal of the figure who throws Barry out of the time warp actually being an older version of Barry who's stuck in an endless loop trying to save everyone, it's both tragic and confusing at the same time. It's one giant paradox, but I love that the Keaton timeline Barry sacrifices himself for our Flash, our Barry that we know. The thing I like least about this whole new multiverse thing that everyone seems to be doing is that it can cause lazy writing. I don't feel like that's the case here, but there are moments where you think, does this actually work and make sense? And I think oftentimes these movies just show you a flashy new thing or a big explosion and expect you to just kind of move on and not really question it. Dude, the scene where Barry visited his mom to take back the can of tomatoes really fucked me up. As I said earlier, I lost my mom to cancer in 2018, and the idea of just being able to see her again, just one more time, just to give her one more hug, it really messed me up. And that moment was really poignant for me. It was really beautiful and well acted. And it got me. I wasn't fully on board with everything they were doing in the third act, but they really kind of pulled at some of those emotional strings. And it may not work for everybody, but I had such a personal stake with that specific scene that it really did an emotional number on me. I love the clever switching of the tomato cans from the middle shelf to the top shelf so Barry's dad could be exonerated for the murder of his wife. It really worked for me. But as we know, you shouldn't mess with time even if it's for a good reason. And the George Clooney Batman showing up at the very end, I thought was great. I grew up on those corny movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. So for me, I had a huge pop in the theater, just me, whenever George Clooney came out and revealed himself as that timeline's Batman, now that Barry had messed with time again. I'm sure some people hated it, but I got a kick out of it. Did you learn nothing, Barry? Don't fucks with time, bro. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get Christian Bale Batman. If we're doing all the Batmans and all the Superman and all the different various characters from these multiverses and all these different films that we've gotten over time, I was also surprised that we didn't get Henry Cavill Superman. Yeah, we kind of got him in some of those timeline warps, but it wasn't really him. It was like a CG wax version of him. But we did get Nicolas Cage as Superman, and I was really disappointed that Andy Muschietti, the director, spoiled that for a lot of people. I'm not sure if he was using it as a tack to get more people to come to the theater or what his motivation was for ruining that and spoiling it for everybody before we could see it for ourselves. I'm not sure they could do Val Kilmer Batman with the state of his health, but that would be really interesting to see. And that's another thing. The CG in this movie was a bit of a mess. The babies in the intro was really ridiculous. It literally looked like baby dolls just being filmed and kind of thrown around the screen. And that was another thing. The way the CG looked when they filmed the two Barrys, you could tell that one was a body double because the face on one of the characters looked very computer generated while the other one looked like the real actor. It wasn't noticeable in every scene, especially when there was some depth of field going on, but when they were right next to each other, it was very noticeable and very distracting as well. I hope you stuck around during the post-credit scene to see Jason Momoa as a drunken Aquaman, having things explained to him by Barry about all the different timelines, and him just falling into a puddle and going to sleep. I thought it was a fun little way to finish out the film. Are they going to have Ezra Miller play the Flash again? With everything that's happened in the news and with the allegations of child grooming, of assault, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, What are they going to do? I'm really not sure. I thought the performance from Ezra was fantastic, but I'm not sure Ezra should play the Flash again. I thought the addition of Kara-El as Supergirl was a pleasant surprise, and it was interesting that she died and kept dying and that they couldn't change what was going on within those timelines. I thought that made the multiverse have a little bit more stakes. That and Michael Keaton's Batman continuing to die regardless of what happens. What this movie does is establish that in this multiverse there are rules and that there's finality to certain timelines and certain characters. That makes things feel like they actually have stakes within the multiverse. That's been the problem with multiverse, is that everything feels like you can just replace a character with another one. If you look at things like Gamora, you just replace her with another alternate timeline Gamora. But with this, they simply couldn't save Supergirl or Batman. It was kind of heartbreaking to see the Keaton timeline Flash trying to save them over and over and over, eventually making himself into an ultimate villain. I thought Keaton perfectly described the multiverse with spaghetti and having the noodles all wet and interwoven, and showing that timelines can be parallel but also go off on their own like a root system. And then him pouring the red tomato sauce on top and showing that what happens when you mess with time is you create a mess. I loved how that was a metaphor for the literal can of tomatoes that Barry took and put in his mom's cart and made the whole mess in the first place, trying to save her life, but ultimately messing up the entire multiverse. So yeah, I was pretty high on this movie. The film was a little bit long, and Zod wasn't the most amazing villain because he sat the sidelines for half the movie and then basically came in and just killed Supergirl and took her blood. Psycho. But all in all, this movie won me over, especially in the third act, and that is where it can fall apart for certain people. It's those emotional beats in that third act that really pulled me into the story. Because before that, I felt like it was just a fun action superhero film. So I'd love to hear what you think about the multiverse in this movie, The Flash, and where we go from here. What's the story going to be like moving forward? Are we going to have a sequel? All of that, let me know down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, and if you're interested in seeing Ezra speak out at the premiere of The Flash, click here and I will catch you in the next one.